She said she loved me, but then I saw the truth. You were never supposed to find out. 132 missed calls. A silent apartment. A hidden letter. And a betrayal that shattered everything we built. I've finally reached a breaking point. I can't take this anymore. I've been in love with this woman for a long time, possibly a couple of years now, and I don't know whether to let go of these feelings or try to build something with her. I first met my ex-wife, who is her sister, when I was 23. Our relationship progressed quickly, and by the time I was 26, we were married and had our son and daughters. However, just months into our marriage, she had an affair. What made it even worse was that the man she cheated with introduced her to heroin. When I confronted her, she claimed she would get help, but instead, she disappeared in the middle of the night. That was 4 years ago, and I haven't heard from her since. The last thing I heard was that she was still with that man, living homeless in Las Vegas. I don't know if that's true, but I've been too focused on holding things together for my kids to go searching for her. Not that I would want to after everything she did. I eventually got a divorce in absentia. Despite everything, I maintained a great relationship with my former in-laws. Every other weekend, my kids stay with their grandparents, and they still treat me like family. I'm invited to holiday gatherings, and the rest of the family seems to genuinely like me. No one brings up my ex anymore, mainly to protect the kids. My oldest, my son, has struggled the most with her absence. He's 9 now, and after he once told me he wished his mother was dead, I decided to get him into therapy. Toward the end, when he was about 5 or 6, she had become verbally abusive, which left a lasting impact on him. After my ex left, her sister and her boyfriend started visiting more often to see the kids. Since I worked a lot, they would babysit, calling it practice, because they planned to have children of their own. My kids adored them, and they spoiled them, which I didn't mind because we all needed some joy in our lives. They eventually got married and were deeply in love. However, not long after their daughter was born, tragedy struck. Her husband died in a workplace accident. It has been extremely rough and painful for everyone involved, as one can imagine. I followed my Sil's example and began to take her daughter to give her time to herself if things got too hard to deal with or she needed alone time. She's been in grief counseling for a few years, but she still wears her ring and has told me she can't ever imagine dating again. I talk to her about him frequently and she's gotten to a better place, but she's still very much in love with him. I can't imagine that sort of pain. Over the last 2 years we've been a more constant figure in each other's lives. My kids love their aunt and I have her over for dinner a couple times a week. My daughter and her daughter have become close and love being around each other, so they have sleepovers. I've moved on from my ex by this, but the idea of dating possibly someone dangerous as their mother has kept me out of the dating scene. I'm not sure exactly when it happened, but over time, I started developing feelings for my sister-in-law. She's an incredible mother, especially considering everything she's been through. She's also one of the kindest people I know, and her sense of humor never fails to lift my spirits. Then, at some point, I realized I was physically attracted to her as well. I've always felt guilty about it. Her late husband was a good friend of mine, and she's still grieving. Because of that, I've kept my feelings to myself. Since COVID began, we've spent more time together, mostly because social distancing cut off a lot of our other social interactions. Nothing romantic has ever come up between us, and I make a conscious effort not to flirt. But last week, after the kids went to bed, we had a few drinks, not enough to get drunk, just enough to relax. She decided to stay the night, so I took the couch. When I woke up, she had made breakfast, and for the first time, the 4 of us truly felt like the family I've always wanted. Before she left, she even kissed my forehead, something she's never done before. I still didn't say anything, but after she left, I found my son quietly playing in his room, looking upset. When I asked him what was wrong, he came right out and said he wished she were his mother. I sat down with him and asked why he felt that way, and he gave me a whole list of reasons: how kind she is, how she never yells, how much he enjoys seeing her at his grandparents' house, and how she draws pictures with him, something I hadn't even realized they did together. By the time he was done, my heart, which was already softening toward her, melted even more. When I dropped the kids off at their grandparents' house, I casually tried to bring up the idea just to gauge how her parents might feel. I jokingly mentioned that she and I act like a married couple sometimes, but instead of laughing, they just seemed distant. They were still friendly, but their reaction made me wonder if they either already suspected something or just didn't approve. At this point, it's becoming impossible to ignore my feelings or pretend they don't exist. I'm in love with her. I either have to push these feelings aside and somehow move on, or I have to find a way to navigate the situation and tell her how I feel. If anyone has insight on how to approach a widow, especially one who was married to a friend, with these kinds of feelings, I could really use some advice. TLDR, after my divorce from her sister and the tragic loss of her husband, my sister-in-law and I became close. She's amazing with my kids, and I've fallen in love with her, but I don't know how to proceed. Update. First, I want to thank everyone who gave me advice on how to move forward and what I could say to my former sister-in-law. Here's what ended up happening. Shortly after making my original post, I realized my kids would be spending Sunday night at their grandparents' house. My niece, my SIL's daughter, usually joins them for these visits. I allow these bi-weekly sleepovers because I believe it's important for my children to maintain a strong bond with their mother's parents. My SIL also lets her daughter go since she enjoys playing with my daughter. That's when it hit me we would both have a free night. Normally, I'd use the time to game or hit the gym for an extra session, but this seemed like the perfect chance to spend time with her without the kids around. So, I texted her. Hey, kids are out this Sunday. Was thinking you might want to get dinner. I chose a fairly upscale restaurant that reopened for outdoor dining a couple of months ago. I never ask her to dinner, and we're rarely alone together without a child in the next room. When she replied that she'd love to, I instantly started panicking because now I actually had to follow through with my feelings. I asked if she'd rather meet at my place and take one car or just meet at the restaurant. She chose to stop by my place first. Wanting to make an effort, I cleaned up more than usual, dressed nicely, but not over the top. When she arrived, though, I was stunned. She wore a beautiful evening dress, had makeup on, which she rarely does, and just looked absolutely breathtaking. I must have been slack-jawed for a moment, I couldn't help it. We exchanged compliments, made some small talk, but I still couldn't find the courage to say anything deeper, and she wasn't pushing the topic either. Dinner was amazing. They had a live jazz band playing, and the atmosphere was perfect. I'm definitely going back to that place. At one point, she mentioned that this was the first real adult social outing she'd had in years that didn't involve her daughter. I realized it had been just as long for me. We laughed, joked, had a great conversation, and even had a little casual touching here and there. But despite how great the moment was, I still couldn't find the nerve to confess my feelings. I was too afraid of ruining what felt so natural. So, I just let myself enjoy the night. But then, as we were leaving, something in me snapped. I thought, screw it. As we stood up, I offered her my arm, and to my surprise, she took it without hesitation. We walked back to the car, arm in arm, neither of us mentioning it, as if it had always been that way. I opened the car door for her, planning to drive her back to her car, but she suddenly stopped me. She looked nervous, then just came right out and told me to stop. She wanted to kiss me. There was no alcohol involved, so this was all her. I pulled her in, and we kissed. I can't even describe how incredible it felt to finally touch her. We ended up standing there, pressed against my car, kissing for what must have been at least half an hour. When we finally pulled away, we shared a few more soft, dreamy looks before getting into the car. On the way home, she held my hand the entire time. I don't think I've ever been happier. I confessed to her that I've started having feelings for her a long time ago, but what with the terrible things we went through, I didn't want to scare her away. She tells me that she's carried a torch for about 6 months herself. At that time I had gone on a couple Tinder dates, and since we were just friends I described what a mess of a time those dates were. She tells me she began feeling intensely jealous and angry that I was seeing these girls. It was about that time it clicked in her mind that she had somehow developed feelings for me. As it turns out, I didn't approach her because of her late husband, and she wasn't approaching me because she was afraid I'd see too much of her sister, my ex-wife, in her and start to resent her for it. After we got home, I invited her in. We both knew the desire was there, but instead of rushing into anything, we curled up on the couch, just holding each other and talking about what it would take to make this work as a real relationship. There were some deeply emotional moments, even a few tears. Naturally, we talked about her late husband. She shared where she is in her grief, and I reassured her that I don't want to rush anything. If she needs time, I'm here. I'll wait for as long as she needs me to. She told me she feels ready to love again and that she's long past feeling guilty for having feelings for me, though it was something she struggled with for a while. Then she brought up a tough subject: her sister, my ex. She asked the questions that a few people in the comments had also wondered about. What if my ex suddenly decided to show up? What if she wanted back into our kids' lives? And the biggest one, if she returned, truly reformed and apologetic, would I take her back? I told her, without hesitation, absolutely not. I've forgiven my ex for cheating on me, but I will never forgive her for what she did to my son. He used to be such a bright, happy boy before his mother started cheating, using, and taking her anger out on him. He's doing much better now, but for a long time, his behavior and sadness were troubling, especially for someone so young. My SIL was concerned about how he might react to us being together since, unlike our daughters, he's old enough to understand everything. I told her not to worry about bringing it up to him just yet, it might embarrass him, but I also shared something I hadn't told her before. Not long ago, he quietly admitted to me that he wished she was his mom instead. We agreed to take things slow, not to rush into anything, but then the kissing started again. And since we were finally in private this time, well, we didn't exactly stick to that plan. For so long, I've imagined moments like this with her. And waking up next to her in the morning, gently running my fingers over her face, that was something I had dreamed of but finally got to experience. Moving forward, we're going to set date nights and focus on strengthening what we already have. When the time comes to tell our families, we'll do it together. That's where things stand for now. If this subreddit allows it, maybe I'll do another update about how our families and the kids take the news. 2 years of wishing she was mine, and now she is. I'd better not mess this up. TLDR, we're in love. Update. TLDR at the bottom, this is a long one. Edit, I forgot to mention that I'll be referring to my ex-wife as Jessica and my sister-in-law, previously SIL, as Sylvia because, well, it's amusing. We've officially told everyone, and for the most part, the news has been well received. When our kids were staying with my in-laws, Sylvia and I took the opportunity to visit my parents. They've met her a few times over the years, but since my family and my in-laws rarely attended the same events, they don't know her very well. At least they recognized her. My dad isn't the sentimental type, so I have no clue what he thinks, but my mom was supportive. She did ask, "Does Jess know?" We explained that I haven't spoken to Jessica in 4 years, and Sylvia hasn't heard from her in 2. We'd cross that bridge if and when we had to. Other than that, my parents were just happy for me. Yesterday, we went to a small Labor Day gathering at my in-laws. We expected a more mixed reaction there since everyone is also related to my ex. My parents were kind enough to take the kids to the zoo for the afternoon plus ice cream so Sylvia and I could break the news without them around. When we arrived at the party, people immediately started asking where the kids were. It felt like every instinct was telling me not to do this, but I took Sylvia's hand, and together, we announced that the kids weren't there because we wanted to tell everyone we're a couple now. It wasn't a huge crowd, maybe 8 people, but at that moment, it felt like I was making the announcement to a packed stadium. We weren't sure what to expect, but to our surprise, many of Sylvia's aunts were thrilled. We got hugs, warm congratulations, and at first no one even mentioned Jessica. They were just happy because they had assumed Sylvia would never date again. The only pushback came from my mother-in-law. She claimed she had known we were together because I always gave Sylvia puppy dog eyes and that Sylvia talked about me nonstop. Then she asked how long we'd been secretly dating. When I told her it had only been a week, she scoffed, saying that starting a relationship off with secrecy wasn't a great idea. Then, half-jokingly, she turned to the guests and accused us of sneaking off at a pool party back in June to smooch. Later, Sylvia's parents pulled us aside for a private talk. They wanted to know how serious we were and like my mom asked if Jessica was aware of our relationship. I told them no and added that her opinion shouldn't matter, she abandoned her family 4 years ago. That's when they dropped a bombshell. They admitted they'd feel more comfortable with everything if I told Jessica myself. They're deeply worried that she might return one day, sober and remorseful, only to find out I'm now in love with her younger sister and that it might push her into a relapse. Something about the way they said it made me feel like there was more to the story. And sure enough, there was. Turns out, Jessica has been calling and talking to them for the past year. They never told me. I was upset they kept this from me, but Sylvia was even more hurt. In all the time since her husband passed, Jessica has never once tried to reach out to her. TLDR, we told our families. My parents were supportive, some of Sylvia's relatives were happy, and my mother-in-law was nosy. Sylvia's parents revealed that Jessica has been secretly in contact with them for the past year. Sylvia and I are both upset they never told us. They show me her Facebook profile, the one she blocked me from, and there she is looking pretty normal, not like a burned-out husk. I have to admit that seeing her not looking like the junkie she became when she left made me feel a little better, and Sylvia too. Her parents kept their contact with her a secret because she is ashamed of what she's done and feels that she's deserved to lose her kids and couldn't face them after all that happened. Sylvia's parents gave me her phone number and asked that I please call her and speak with her. I told her that my feelings for Sylvia are real and there is no chance I reconcile with Jess. Phil seemed to nod in approval, but Mill honestly looks like she was hoping we'd fix things. After we left I talked to Sylvia about it, and though we discussed it before, a circumstance where Jess returns, we decided to revisit the conversation in light of these new revelations. I told Syl that I am in love with her, my whole heart is hers, and that my feelings of love for her are something deeper and stronger than anything I ever felt for my ex-wife. She ends up crying from the stress of the situation, anger with her parents for keeping secrets, and anger with her sister for not calling her or offering condolences at all after her husband's death. She then admits that she is afraid I might leave her if her sister returns, and I assure her this will never happen. It took some long hugs and a lot of kisses to smooth over the situation, but by the time we went to pick up the kids, we were holding hands together again and feeling more connected than ever. Lately, she's been staying over at my place quite often. To make sure the kids don't see anything inappropriate, I've been setting my alarm for 5 a.m., getting up, and moving to the couch. However, the morning after we decided to share our relationship with the little ones, I didn't do that. Our daughters were thrilled, though they're still too young to fully understand what's happening. All they know is they get to play together more often. I had a private conversation with my son to check how he felt about everything. He asked if we would all live together, and I told him that might happen one day. Then, he asked if this meant his aunt was now his stepmom. I reassured him that he could call her whatever felt right to him, and both she and I would respect that because we love him. That talk led to a deeper conversation about his mother. He asked questions he'd never asked before. I answered as honestly as I could while softening some details. He's learned a bit about drug abuse through school programs, so I finally told him the truth. His mom had struggled with addiction and made some poor choices. The hardest part was when he asked if she didn't love him. That broke me. I reassured him that she did love him but had made many bad decisions, and sometimes adults fail to do what's right. Then he asked if I still loved her. I told him I wished for her to get better and didn't want her to suffer, but she had hurt both of us too much for me to love her the way I once did. I'm not sure he fully understood, but I did my best to explain it. Despite everything, my son has been noticeably happier since Sylvia became part of our lives. He's more engaged, less withdrawn, and always trying to impress her just like I used to do with my own mom when I was a kid. Even with all this happiness, I still have the dreaded phone call with my ex ahead of me. But having Sylvia here, being able to hold her and kiss her at night, has brought back a joy I didn't even realize I was missing. We've been doing all those sweet, romantic things. She leaves love notes in my lunchbox, sometimes even little poems, and I had flowers delivered to her workplace. She told me that some of her coworkers had been encouraging her to ask me out for months, so I figured the flowers would be a nice way to make her happy while also giving a playful nod to the office ladies. To everyone who commented or messaged me on my previous posts, thank you. Your support helped me gather the courage to finally tell her how I feel. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, but I think this just about wraps up my updates. TLDR, her family accepted our relationship with some hesitation, while mine was fully supportive. Our children seem happy with the arrangement, and now I have to face my ex-wife for the first time in 4 years. Relevant comments. My son has been seeing a therapist for the past year. After my ex left, he would wake up crying at night. At first, I assumed it was just nightmares, and sometimes it was, but one night, I found him sobbing, and when I asked what was wrong, he said, "I was afraid mommy was going to hurt me again." Through therapy, he shared that while she never actually hit him, she would frequently pinch him and threaten to hit him if he ever told anyone. I can't comprehend how she changed so drastically. She used to love him so much, but after I found out about her affair, it was like she became a completely different person. Now, he's so much happier, and I've been doing my best to show him how much I love him even though I'm not naturally expressive with emotions in my daily life. When it comes time to speak with my ex, I plan to do so with Sylvia present, so she knows exactly what's being said and doesn't have to worry about me hiding anything from her. Any messages I receive from my ex, I'll share with Sylvia as soon as possible, and if she calls, I'll be upfront about the conversation. Not because Sylvia expects it, but because I want her to know that my heart belongs entirely to her. There's no space for anyone else. As for what the kids call Sylvia, they refer to her as auntie, and her daughter calls me uncle. I doubt my ex will be an issue anytime soon. She moved to Vegas, and I live nowhere near there. From a little Facebook snooping, I found out that she's no longer with the guy she left me for. Honestly, I have no desire to talk to her. She's avoided me for years, and I don't want to give her a reason to focus on me again. Besides, how would that conversation even go? Hey, the woman who walked out on me. In case you weren't aware, we're divorced now. Oh, and before you hear it from someone else, I've been spending time with your younger sister. You know, the one you've always been jealous of. Update. What you're about to read is a comment I wrote last week, which I've just copied and pasted because it pretty much works as a full update. It covers how the phone call with my ex-wife went and includes a bit more information. I actually spoke to her back in September. I've been meaning to write an update, but life got pretty hectic. About a month ago, I wrote a long, 10-paragraph post, but my laptop crashed, and I lost it. That kind of discouraged me from rewriting it. As for my ex, she's in a much better place now and has been in recovery 8 months clean at this point. She finally opened up to me about the details of her affair, how everything happened, and how she got into drugs. Honestly, it wasn't something I wanted to hear, but I can see she's trying to turn her life around. And as much as I dislike what she did to me and the kids, I still want her to get better. I probably shouldn't, but I do still worry about her sometimes. Anyway, I finally told her about Sylvia and me, and she was completely shocked. When we first met, she was 19, and Sylvia was 14, so in her mind, she's always seen Sylvia as a kid when it comes to me. To be fair, I used to call her the kid sister. But once she realized Sylvia is a grown woman who was married and has a child, her initial reaction of hinting that I was being creepy stopped. She asked if I had feelings for Sylvia while we were still married, and I told her no. We also talked about the kids, and she was incredibly remorseful, crying throughout the conversation. She admitted she doesn't know how she'll ever face them again. I wanted to say something comforting, but at the same time, I didn't want to give her the impression that I'm ready to welcome her back into their lives. I'll be cordial, maybe even friendly, but I'm not going to be naive. She and Sylvia also talked for a while. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but from what I overheard and what Sylvia later told me, they discussed Sylvia's late husband. Turns out my ex had been arrested for a breaking and entering charge that same week and spent time in jail. She didn't even know he had passed until weeks after the funeral, and by then, she felt reaching out would only make things worse. Overall, the conversation went as well as could be expected. Sylvia, the kids, and I have been spending almost every day together, and I haven't been this happy in years. My son and daughter love all the motherly attention they've been getting, and I'm really enjoying getting to know my niece better. Life is good. Busy, but good. Thanks for asking. Honestly, I might just copy and paste this as my official update. That was my comment update, and not much has changed in the week since I wrote it. If anyone has questions or thoughts, I'll try to respond when I can, but my workload increases significantly during the season, so I don't have as much free time as when I first posted. I'm so glad I took the chance with Sylvia. I love her so much. I had been without a romantic partner for so long that I forgot what it felt like to be in love or to feel loved. Now that I remember, it's shocking how alone and miserable I had been without realizing it. I mean, for Christ's sake, we played Scrabble last night, and for some reason, it made me ridiculously happy. Update. It's been almost a year since Sylvia, my former sister-in-law, and I started dating. For those unfamiliar with the backstory, here's a quick summary. I have 2 children and was previously married to her sister, my ex-wife. That marriage ended due to a combination of infidelity, drug abuse, and child neglect. My ex eventually ran off to another state with her lover. Her family, however, supported me, and I remained close with them. Sylvia and her late husband became especially close friends of mine, but tragically, he passed away in a workplace accident. Over the years, Sylvia and I bonded as our daughters became best friends, and eventually, we developed romantic feelings for each other. A year later, we're living together, and I couldn't be happier. We're also looking to buy a new home. Our children are thriving in a stable, 2-parent household. Our daughters now see each other as sisters, and my son is equally embraced as part of the family. The dynamic is interesting when speaking with teachers or friends. My son refers to Sylvia as his mom, but when addressing her directly, he still calls her auntie. The same goes for our daughters calling me uncle. It confuses some people at first, but it always makes for an interesting story. Since my last update, we've had little contact with my ex-wife. From what we hear, she's doing better. She has a stable job, a boyfriend, and is staying clean. While I don't like the idea of her re-entering my children's lives, if she continues on this path, it'll be difficult to deny her visitation. Not just legally, but morally as well. Sylvia and I aren't looking forward to that possibility, but for now, it's not an immediate concern. Thankfully, her parents have stopped trying to interfere or push my ex back into our lives, as we initially feared. Our kids still spend weekends with them, just as my 2 did before, which gives Sylvia and me time for ourselves. Friday nights and most of Saturday have become our designated date time. Our mutual friends were surprised when they first found out about us, but they've been overwhelmingly supportive. They try to avoid bringing up my ex, though she does occasionally come up in conversation. Ultimately, most people are just happy that Sylvia and I have found happiness together. One side of the family I haven't mentioned much is Sylvia's late husband's relatives. As expected, her daughter still sees them regularly, and they've been incredibly supportive. His father even told me directly that he was relieved it was me. He had worried that his granddaughter's life would be disrupted by a stranger coming in. While we haven't had many family gatherings due to COVID, the few we have had included them, and that will always be the case. Speaking of Sylvia's late husband, she and I have had a lot of deep conversations about our feelings. She even invited me to one of her therapy sessions to work through some of those emotions. Despite how wonderful things are between us, his presence will always be a part of our lives, and we both acknowledge that. At one point, Sylvia decided entirely on her own that out of respect for me, she should stop wearing her wedding ring. As expected, that was a difficult and emotional decision for her. I reassured her that she didn't have to take it off and even told her that if we were to marry, she has 2 hands. After that, she decided to wear it on a necklace instead. She now wears an engagement ring as well. I don't have a dramatic engagement story, no grand public spectacle. But there were plenty of tears, hugs, and kisses, and that's all that really matters. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you all so much for the kind words and encouragement.